How are you all doing on this fine Wednesday? I had to go get a passport today. It was very exciting. Hello! I had to go to a passport and I forgot that they need checks, because who needs checks in the year of our Lord 2025? So, Scoop, my lovely wife, was lovely enough to run a checkout so I didn't have to come back in 3 to 5 fucking weeks to get a new appointment. So, thanks, Scoop. But yeah, other than that, pretty normal Wednesday. My shit's going pretty normal. I feel a little allergy-y today, but we'll see how that affects my... Yeah, the check had an 8-year-old address and a name that she no longer uses. But it's still valid. But yeah, hopefully the light nasaliness that I'm feeling doesn't affect the listenability too much. So, but yeah, other than that, it's Chrono Jotter again. We are once again diving back into this madness. Last time we just spent a lot of time, I think, gathering information about the task that we were looking at. I'm trying to remember what the completely baffling, psychotic shit they said last time was. Was that the one with the Slim Goodbody, I think? Where it, like, mimicked your organs? I don't know. Either way, I believe right now we are solving or putting together the theory of what happened in this. And we are going through bit by bit. So, with that, I think, as usual, let's get into it. Grab a drink, settle in, and listen to me tell you about the craziest lesbians you ever done seen. So, let's just start breaking it down from the top. The first question that we should answer and look at is, why did the culprit move the corpse? How do you feel about this one, Miss Sakura? Is this worth considering? Seeing the crime's always important to any case. Carrying Tama's body must have cost the culprit additional time and risked leaving additional evidence, but even then, she still decided to move the corpse anyway. Worth thinking about. That's right. This case was very unique. The culprit required a specific environment to perform the murder, which makes the true scene of the crime even more important. Let's make a note of this question. Where is the murder weapon? Ron, how's this question? I actually feel like we can ignore this one. Based on the circumstances, we can't get a lot of clues from the weapon. Real police investigations sometimes focus on finding the murder implement because they want to identify suspects based on how the killer acquired the weapon, to determine based on the weapon's physical state whether the killer is a repeat offender, and to use forensic instruments to get clues off of the weapon. But in our situation, the murder weapon is just sitting in a tool shed, and anybody could have had an opportunity to steal the keys from Masakura. Perhaps the place where the murderer hid the weapon could be a clue? So it's most likely I got murdered in the recall because the culprit was heading there to pick up the weapon. If we really have to find the location of the murder weapon, that'd waste a lot of our time. We should only try something like that once we've used up all the clues we have on hand. Sure. I guess we can eliminate this avenue of inquiry for now. When was Tama Endo's corpse moved? Inquiries regarding Tom all seem rather important, don't they? That's right. I believe the only thing in this world which can be interfered with is time. And which can't be interfered with is time. And through recall, I have a broader view over time itself than anybody else. So let's use all the clues we have regarding time to their greatest extent. Alright, I'll write this question down then. Why strangle Tama Indo? It's a very interesting question. I feel like it pulls on quite a few of the clues. That's right. Of course, there's the simple answer that strangling Indo is just to make it easier for the killer to twist her head, but the killer could have just chosen a simpler method and saved themselves the effort. Instead, they went and took a lot of additional actions and left behind many clues. So the culprit was foolish? Why strangle Tama Indo? Why not? It doesn't matter either way. What the culprit was thinking is their own business. We just need to deduce based on the things we know what actually happened. This problem is worth considering. Why kill with such a strange technique? Why did you rotate their fucking head around? Feels like this is a really important question. Kinda, sure. Indeed, strange is a word that frequently accompanies an investigation. People often say this person died in a very strange way, so we should definitely start by trying to figure out why the culprit would do such a thing. But actual investigations don't focus on the method itself, but rather what the culprit had to do to achieve the method. Sounds a bit circular. If we focus entirely on the method, it's too easy for us to get distracted with the killer's motives, like revenge or theatricality or whatnot. Using Indo as an example, when we're focusing on what the killer had to be capable of doing to achieve this method, we start asking, when did the killer get the weapon? How tall did the culprit have to be able to make those marks on the tree, etc.? Specifically focusing on the how is more meaningful and direct than the why. So that's why I think this question doesn't demand our attention. Then how about the other questions you brought up just now? Those are all supporting details for the constructions of this theory. They're all questions that we'll have to answer on the way to solving the fundamental question here. So to put it simply, why the culprit would use such a strange method as this isn't the fundamental question at all. But does the culprit have an accomplice? Now there's a bit of a conundrum. It's not exactly a useless inquiry, but before solving the other problems, it's hard to judge this at one at all. Let's write it down first then, and consider it last. That's it then. Let's begin the reasoning. Alright, that's all the questions. Is that enough, Miss Sakura? I think so. Then, next up, we'll have to solve these questions in a logical order. Correct. First up, why did the murderer move the body? They hoped that the body would be discovered more quickly, to conceal the time of death, or to conceal the method of the crime. I'm gonna say they wanted it to be discovered more quickly. I'm not confident on that, though. I know it's not method, but it's one of the top two, I think. If they wanted the corpse to be found earlier, they could have just left it at the door to the gym rather than putting it inside. Yeah, that's fair. What about the opposite? If they didn't want it to be found, they could have just left the corpse at the scene of the murder. Could it be that she wanted to hide it, but, well, heading to the gym, something unexpected occurred, making it so that her only option was to put the body in the gym? No way. Whether the culprit wanted to hide it or not, from the start, they shouldn't have bothered with the gym at all. There's plenty of other places that satisfy both the previously stated goals. At the least, she shouldn't have entered the gym. So her intent with putting the body there had little to do with whether she wanted to hide or reveal the body. So then probably to conceal the time of death. We don't have the ability to perform an autopsy, and based on eyewitness testimony of the last time Indo was seen alive, there's a wide range of time where her death could have occurred. Moving the corpse doesn't have much of an impact on timeframes this large, not unless the corpse and the original scene of the crime are incredibly far from each other. But in actuality, the place we discovered the tree wasn't that far from the gym, so the culprit's choice to move the corpse has nothing to do with trying to disguise the time of the murder. Oh, so I'm just wrong. I guess it's to conceal the method. Okay. I thought she had just said about that. It wasn't pertinent, but whatever. That's right. we've mentioned the strangeness of this method over and over already. It requires so much preparation, has so many limitations, and leaves behind so many clues which would need to be disposed of afterwards. In a situation like this, there would be an abundance of clues at the original scene of the crime. The tree alone gave us enough information to connect the configuration of the ropes to the hat of the killer, allowing us to reduce the range of possible suspects. Yes. The culprit didn't want people to discover her exact methodology easily. In fact, I was only able to deduce her method after noticing many clues from the corpse which led us to the original scene of the crime. Next up is, why did they strangle Indo unconscious? What's wrong? This question's a bit complicated. There seem to be multiple workable answers here. What does that mean? To be more precise about it, the culprit's choice to strangle Indo seems like it could achieve multiple goals. I'm not sure a single answer can encapsulate all the goals. Let's see. So we should try to figure out all the potential benefits that strangling Tama could have had for the culprit, and then reanalyze those, create a clear chain of logic. Right? Correct, Miss Sakura. You've summed things up accurately as expected. Let's begin then. So preventing Tama from struggling during the murder. That's legit. This one's the most obvious reason, isn't it? Though the culprit wouldn't have used so much effort just for that. After tying up Indo, the ropes themselves would have been enough to restrain her and allow the culprit to twist her head around. But if Indo were awake in that state, she'd surely be struggling and moving her head this way and that, making it hard for the culprit to operate. Speaking of struggling, it's possible that Tama woke up in the middle of the act, isn't it? Very possible, though it'd have been too late by then. Why did the culprit want to strangle? Culprit tried to... No, I don't think that's the case. Culprit needed time to prepare the murder weapon. Yeah, I think that's the case. Because it's so elaborate. If you look at the murder weapon and method together, the culprit must have planned this out long in advance. But it's not like the culprit could run around all the time carrying a giant wrench, after all. It was brought up while we were investigating Indo's corpse as well, that everyone knows what the pipe wrench is for, after all. That's why I think the culprit only decided that it was her time to act after she saw me and Indo split up. And then, the culprit strangled Indo until she fainted and hid her somewhere before going to find the murder weapon. So you're saying that strangling Tama was to buy time for the culprit? That's right. This also implies that the culprit probably strangled Indo with her own bare hands. She was taking advantage of a spontaneous opportunity, and didn't immediately have something like rope on her. I think they needed to make a false alibi in the time that they could have had. The culprit could have killed Indo immediately after choking her out, but the process would have taken some time, and there'd be a large amount of blood on the culprit that would have been difficult to clean. Plus, she needed time to get her murder implement, and to clean up the bloodied clothes afterwards, not to mention a risk of being witnessed. So, after the culprit choked Tama out, appearing before the rest of us before going to kill Tama properly would be a very sensible choice. And that's exactly what she did. And she expanded the pool of potential suspects in the process. A very effective act. Alright, these are the benefits that strangling Indo could have had for the culprit. I hadn't thought it would turn out to be such a rational decision. Let's continue then. When did the culprit move the corpse? I don't remember if Tama's clothes were wet. I'm gonna say... I'm wondering if it's in our notes somewhere. No, this is not helpful. Well, I don't think there's any actual penalty for getting it wrong, so I'm just gonna say... Oh, before it rained? Did they shuffle them? I thought the middle one was after it rained. Oops. Before it rained. No. Not what I meant to click. Incorrect. The traces of moisture on Tama's body are very clear. It must have happened after the rain began, because... Oh no, I meant to click before the rain. I was wrong, because I couldn't remember if Tama was wet or not. Yeah. Despite this, however, her feet are very clean. This could only have been because she'd already been dead by the time it started raining, so she could no longer walk with her own feet. Did the culprit make an oversight? Everyone knows how frequently it's been raining recently. If she'd prepared rain protection, or if she'd smothered mud on Tama's clothes, she could have really confused us. It wouldn't have made a big difference either way, because the important thing isn't if Indo was alive when she was getting rained on, it's whether she was even outside at all when it was raining. Indo had an umbrella with her after all. Logically speaking, you wouldn't expect her to get so completely drenched. It's very strange that Indo was outside not using her umbrella when it was raining. But the killer's lack of preparation against inclement weather is indeed strange. This suggests that it's possible that she didn't begin committing the murder during the rain, but rather that it suddenly began to rain during the process of the murder. Right. And the rain must have started while she was killing Tama. By the time the culprit moved Tama's body, the rain had already been falling for some time. Otherwise, if the rain had started while the corpse was being moved, the culprit could have just covered Tama with a tarp. Yeah, if she'd prepared a tarp beforehand and wrapped it on Indo before she began, whether it rained or not, the bloodstains wouldn't have looked the way that they look now. Based on the culprit's method, she couldn't have covered Tama's head with a tarp as well, since if she did that, the weapon would have jostled the tarp off when Tama's head was rotated to face all the way upwards anyway. Once the rain got on Tama's hair, you wouldn't have been able to hide it anymore. Yep, so in conclusion, the culprit was the person who was still outside when it began raining. And once we've excluded all possibilities, that leaves only her. Finally, whether or not an accomplice exists is no longer a meaningful question. We've already figured out the identity of the culprit, and the only person who could have possibly been her accomplice I've already eliminated as a possibility through recall. Are you really going to be able to convince a murderer using evidence you got through recall, though? That time you revived me, it was Miho who helped you avoid the disaster at the end, wasn't it? This time it'll be different. The culprit won't actively bring up the idea of an accomplice on her own. If she did, she'd be implicating herself as the culprit. So is it... Oh god, it's been too long. Is it Yoruno or is it Asakura? I think it's Asakura. So, we've solved all the problems up to this point. Mm-hmm. But if the culprit is her, then I don't want the others to know yet. I have to talk with her alone. It's dangerous, though. What if she kills you? It's fine. I'll just tell her that Misakura also knows who the culprit is. Still feel like we should go see her together, shouldn't we? Normally I'd be ecstatic to go anywhere with Misakura, of course, but this time compared to the how, I'm really more curious about the culprit's why. Maybe it'll even help me restore some of my memories. I still don't want Misakura to know all about that yet. If we go together and we both get killed, then we're all gonna be in real trouble. After all, she did kill me in a recall. Alright then. Be careful, okay? Don't worry, Miss Sakura. I told you that I'd never leave you again. Ron stood at the side of the iron bed frame, looking at Tama's corpse. The body bag that she'd been held in had long since been disposed of, and now Tama was wearing a hospital gown that fit her well. Looks like everybody's got clothes tailored exactly to their own fit. Then, Asakura pushed open the door and entered the morgue. He walked right past Ron and leaned onto the wall. Ibuki-san. Calling me to come here alone. I don't suppose you're expecting me to carry a conversation with Tama all on my own. Yeah, why does the hospital gown fit her? That's weird. I know who the culprit is. And yet you only called me here. Ron looked at her and nodded. So you think I'm the culprit, then? I'd rather not say, yet. I'm afraid that Indo will wake up if I do, and there are some things that I don't want her to hear. The corners of Asakura's eyes drooped. Her sharp gaze made Ron worried that Asakura might actually decide to kill her. How kind of you. Though I don't particularly want her to revive either. By the way, just so you know, Miss Sakura also knows the identity of the culprit. Don't worry, I'm not going to do anything to you. Pretty sure you caved in my skull in that recall, but sure, whatever you say. Well, no point in wasting more time. I'm going to begin describing the murder process now. First off, the complexity of this method means that it was a clear, premeditated murder. The nature of the murder meant that the culprit was waiting for one specific circumstance, when Tama Indo was alone. Yesterday, after Indo separated from me, she sent the culprit a text message saying that she was going to visit the culprit. Come on, you can stop with the culprit thing. You're clearly gunning for me. I haven't said any such thing yet. After the culprit received the text, she thought that this was a valuable opportunity, so she met up with Indo at the power room. After meeting Indo, the culprit strangled her until she fainted. I love the little drawings. If the culprit needed time to get the murder weapon, she could have made preparations before Indo arrived. Since, based on Indo's personality, she wouldn't leave the site until she'd met up with the culprit. But the culprit still needed to use Indo to generate an alibi for herself. So in order to prevent Indo from contacting the other students, and just in case she managed to escape somehow, the killer locked Indo in the spare parts closet inside the generator room, and locked it. Afterwards, to generate an alibi, and to obscure the exact time when Indo was ambushed, the culprit went to the pool to go find Yoruno. Then, using the excuse that she needed someone to help her put the generator's lid back on, she brought Yoruno back to the generator room with her. How careless of this supposed culprit. What if Tama had woken up and started making a ruckus in the spare parts closet? Wouldn't Yoruno have overheard? Or are you really worried about that, Asakura? I'll be continuing now. With Yoruno's help, the two replaced the lid of the generator. After that, the culprit cleaned up her tools and headed to the dorms with Yoruno to meet the other students. Then she pretended that she wanted to go find Indo, and headed to the tool room to get the murder weapon and the ropes. Then, she returned to the generator room, picked up the delirious Indo, and headed to the nearby grove of trees. There she used the ropes to tie Indo to a tree she'd scouted out in advance. The following is how she tied the ropes, more or less. After that, the killer wrapped herself in a tarp she'd prepared, to prevent any blood from getting on her uniform. Clamping Indo's head with a pipe wrench, she rotated it from top to bottom. Once again, the wrench's angle was parallel with its starting position. She walked to the other side and began turning it from bottom to top. Hey, how come you aren't drawing this part? Because I don't want to draw it. It's just the two of us, and between the two of us, we both know how it went down. How unprofessional. Heavy rain started suddenly falling while the culprit was still working. The culprit followed her plan and untied Indo from the tree and took her to the gymnasium to conceal the original scene of the crime. After reaching the side entrance of the gym, the killer took off her muddy shoes, entered the gym, and placed Indo on the stage. Then she took the tarp off herself, flipped it to the other side, and used it to clean any remaining traces inside the gym away. How do you know such a tarp exists? I've been inside the generator room closet. There was a pile of tarps in there. Oh yeah, and one of them was clean. There was dust all over and around the tarps, everywhere, except for the tarp on the top of the pile, which was completely clean. That let me know that the topmost tarp was probably taken by the culprit. Furthermore, the walls and floor were cleaner than the other areas in the room. I suppose that after placing Indo in that room, the pattern of dust in the room had changed strangely, so the culprit cleaned it up. Oh, you sure are, Master Detective. After placing the corpse and cleaning up the evidence, the culprit used her phone to contact Yuruno to tell her that Indo had disappeared. That's how the murder was carried out, more or less. So let me guess. The premises upon which you've based your reasoning are the presumed height of the culprit and the suspects who were still outside when it was raining. What a sloppy job by the culprit. Well, you guessed right. The culprit was No, wait, hold on. As long as I don't identify the culprit, even if the culprit admits it, Indo won't come back to life, will she? Asakura raised one eyebrow. She clearly hadn't expected Ron to say something like that. No, she won't. Because it will technically count as you not actually knowing exactly who the culprit... Excuse me. No, she won't. Because it will technically count as you not actually knowing exactly who the suspect you fit your height criteria and who was outside during the rain was. It's good then. Even if we revived Indo now, it wouldn't solve the problem. What are you trying to say? Asakura stood up straight. Even though there was some distance between the two of them, Ron still felt a sense of pressure. I thought that the killer had a close relationship with Indo. So what if the culprit was close with her? Do you think the culprit would have refrained from doing such a thing to Tama just because they were close? On the contrary, don't you think that the culprit would actually exploit it, disguise her own identity? The method was chosen entirely out of the hopes that it would make the investigation more difficult to solve. Asakura was speaking very quickly all of a sudden. Ron didn't need to even analyze her speech pattern to tell that she was stressed. I'd have liked to believe that too. Asakura clenched her fists tightly, but only for a moment before she let go, trying to keep herself as calm as possible. But the truth is, the culprit did this out of hatred. She chose this method because she wanted Indo to suffer. From my perspective, they only did it for the sake of the case. No matter who the victim was, the culprit would have done the same thing. Ron set her hand on the iron bed frame and took a step forward. After Indo learned who the culprit was, she'd surely cooperate with the culprit as best as she could to ensure that her plan would go smoothly. Right? And before all of this, I also believed that the culprit in the same situation as... were the culprit in the same situation as Indo, she'd also choose to cooperate with Indo. But the amount of suffering that the culprit's plan would inflict on Indo is too horrifying. The culprit was someone very important to Indo. You could even say that the culprit was the meaning of her life. And she had no doubt about this fact and was happy to live this way. So the culprit was to Indo as Miss Sakura is to me. Thus I'm astonished that the culprit would... Thus I'm astonished that the culprit would choose to do such a thing to Indo. So according to you, whenever anybody decides to commit a murder and then cut the corpse up into parts afterwards, that's all because they hate their classmates? Couldn't the culprit have just impartially decided to snap Tama's neck? Is that so impossible? Sure, possible. But Asakura, is that actually what you were thinking? Don't you think that the culprit might keep trying to use the same cruel method to kill Indo? And after she revives, even if the designated victim wasn't Indo, don't you think that the culprit would keep finding excuses to kill her anyway, using the fact that she witnessed a crime to justify it? Asakura narrowed her eyes and furrowed her brows. She stuck her hands into her jacket pockets. I don't see why we're discussing such a pointless topic. This is all intuition. If you'd like a deduction so much, then why don't you show me some proof that I hate Tama and force a confession out of me then? This is about interpersonal emotions, not something that can be explained entirely through logic, but... Ron looked down at the white cloth covering Tama Indo, and then looked back up at Makoto Asakura. Yuruno once said, "You once decided to commit suicide after you both drew the culprit and victim cards." Makoto Asakura's hands had balled themselves into fists in her pocket. This time, she didn't loosen them. And it was Indo who reasoned out your process of committing suicide and revived you. And I'm guessing she completely reasonably decided to blame herself for your choice to commit suicide. Even though you'd given up your life under the condition that you could be revived. But Indo thought, if she'd given you enough satisfaction, that you would have chosen to kill one of the other classmates rather than yourself. And after that, her concern for you intensified and redoubled in magnitude, and because of this, you grew tired of Indo, and even began to hate her. Asakura was suddenly standing over Ron, looming over Ron. Ron hadn't even noticed when she'd gotten so close. Asakura looked down, staring at Ron. And all of this, you intuited as well. Ron reached out and grabbed Asakura by her shirt collar. And I intuited right, didn't I? What does Tama Indo mean to you? Asakura grabbed Ron's arm by the wrist and moved it away from her shirt collar. Nothing, that's what. A total nuisance. Tama Indo forces me to keep on living. I couldn't find any reason to keep existing in this world, so I chose to leave, but she dragged me back against my will anyways. Now I have to endure the pain of continuing existence, and be forced to accept the way that she looks at me so enthusiastically. So I turned her head around, so that she would stop looking at me like that. But you're blaming all of this on... Suddenly, an insensate delirium came over Ron. It was a feeling she'd experienced once before. But now, my memories of Asakura are about to return. What even was the trigger word? Asakura. Ron's body swayed. She almost collapsed to the ground. Asakura, after a moment of hesitation, reached out and supported her. Was it suicide? Asakura, did you... Ron grabbed tightly to Makoto's arm. The storms of pain roiling through her mind told her that her guess was indeed correct. So, Asakura, you're already... Her thoughts cut off there. Everything before Ron began to twist and distort, before finally fading out into infinite darkness. Okay. On January 17th, 2020, at 6:18 in the afternoon, a female third-year student from Tokyo Jogakukan Senior High School, standing in the middle of Shibuya Crossing, used a 20-centimeter-long steel grocery knife to commit suicide by opening her carotid artery. At the time, the number of people who were crossing the street was in excess of 3,000 people. Countless cell phone cameras recorded the entire process of the girl's slow death from exsanguination. Ultimately, when paramedic personnel were finally able to reach the scene, the student had already perished. The recordings were shared all across the internet. Rumors about the deceased student became a hot topic for a time, and the personal details of the deceased, which were meant to be kept secret, became publicly available information. Between the over-analysis of the media, the clickbait platforms which thrived on blood and spectacle, and the conversations on internet forums from idle bystanders, everyone speculated about her reasons for committing suicide. And to those that knew her family, her classmates, and her friends, Makoto Asakura was, more or less, a perfect person. It was said that the motive of the suicidal was that life was nothing but despair, self-torture. But Makoto Asakura's life, as seen through others' eyes, could be described as nothing short of an idyllic existence. Everyone thought that Makoto Asakura's life was one worthy of continuation, and yet she had actively chosen to abandon it. The way that Makoto Asakura's values differed so much from the norm caused Ranabuki to perceive that the two of them shared a similar kind of isolation. And, as for Makoto Asakura herself, she'd been contemplating the decision to commit suicide for quite a long time. She struggled quite hard to find a reason not to die. So, she asked others what the purpose of living was. Most of the answers she received were some variation on consumerist hedonism, or maybe setting some kind of lofty life goal for herself. But she was unable to feel any meaning, any of them. She was lacking in any sort of spiritual or religious faith, and neither relied on nor was relied on by anyone. Living for the sake of her family or friends wasn't enough to justify her continuation. Makoto Asakura never expressed what she was really thinking deep down. There was no meaning in letting others know about her inner nihilism. Similarly, there was no meaning in pointing out the pointlessness of the actions of others, either. Finally, on that day, Makoto Asakura had been sent by her family to pick up a custom-made knife by some relatives in Shibuya, and, while traveling through the Shibuya crossing, she happened to look up and see on the giant LED screens a live stream of some famous chef making sashimi. When the camera fixated itself upon the fish's head, the giant eye of the fish, blindly and unfocusedly staring out into space, had an unexpectedly provocative effect on Asakura's heart. And so, she took out the knife, cut her own neck. Ran felt like she and Asakura were traveling the same route. Asakura had simply reached the end sooner than Ran. Because of this, Ran decided to assume that the incompatibility between her values and that of the people around her was just an unchangeable constant, and redoubled her determination to sink deeper into An's embrace. An Sakura's existence was the source of Ran's certainty that Ranabuki would never take the same road as Makoto Asakura. Oof. Damn. Ran stared with wide eyes as she recovered from her delirium. She grasped at the side of the iron bed and straightened herself shakily. Asakura watched her from the side without speaking. Just like the situation with Koizumi-sensei, I already knew about Asakura. She's even already died? But she's not only just perfectly alive here. I even saw a lot of things in those memories that were things that only Asakura herself ought to know. Just who is it that's showing me these things? And with Asakura herself being here, those memories must be the truth. Right? Just a little light fiction. There's a reason I have the sensitive themes warning up here. Ay, 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 ay. We might be full lost. We might be full lost here. This might be worm purgatory. Just had a bit of a headache. Everything's fine now. Please continue speaking. I don't have anything more to say. I think you should give yourself and Indo a chance. She can give you the meaning you want. Is there even a point? Both of them have long since died already, haven't they? You say you hate the way she looks at you, but Indo's gaze can't be the same as that of a fish, right? What am I even doing? There's no way that Asakura's destiny of suicide can be changed. Just like how it doesn't matter how much resolve Koizumi-sensei builds up for herself. What? A fish? What fish? Also, the more positive things you say about Tama Indo, the less it makes me ever want to see her again. She has everything that I wish I had. Tama Indo wallows in excitement and novelty every single day. She enjoys the pleasures of being alive every single day. And she even has the temerity to try to share these things with me. And she's even somehow gotten herself a meaning of life off of me. Asakura spoke faster and faster, and her breathing became more and more rapid. Even after I killed her myself so I could escape her torment, she still brought me back to life. She just wants to share the things that make her happy, to make you happy as well, doesn't she? I suppose there was a certain period where I was contemplating how to make Tama Indo die as painfully as possible. In that sense, I suppose I found a life goal for a while. Look, I know how all of you perceive Tama Indo. But in mine, every single move and action she makes is filled with nothing but absolute malevolence towards me. Have you tried telling her these things? Do you think that Tama would understand my feelings? That's not the point. Look, if you're sick of breathing and want to take a hike, I'm not going to stop you. But I'm not going to let you drag Indo down with you. Asakura didn't answer Ron. Now that you've vented yourself on Indo, once she comes back, have a proper conversation with her, all right? At least apologize to her. I'm sure she'll take your frustrations seriously. What would the point be even if she does take them seriously? The two of them are already dead. There's no point to their relationship, no matter how much it improves. Asakura laid her hands on the edge of the steel frame of the bed and looked at Tama Indo's corpse. The first time she'd looked directly at Tama since Ron had called her to the morgue. Doubt it'll go the way you want it. You know what Tama's going to say to me as soon as she wakes up. What? Asakura walked towards the door of the morgue and pushed it open. Why don't you find out in my stead? All right then. I claim that the killer of Tama Indo was Makoto Asakura. I confess to being the culprit. Your reasoning was accurate. After finishing that sentence, Makoto Asakura closed the door and left the morgue. The moment the sound of the door slamming shut faded away, the iron bed began shaking and clanking. Ron turned to see that Tama's neck was gradually returning to its correct angle, and that the damage to it quickly repaired itself. It was like watching the steel cables of a suspension bridge rearrange themselves in parallel, though the speed of the regeneration didn't seem as quick as with Hans. Ron could see the other organs slowly regenerating as well behind the muscles. Suddenly, Tama opened her eyes, even though the wounds on her neck were far from being fully repaired. Her consciousness had been restored before her wounds had. Even while the regeneration was still underway, tears flowed from Tama's eyes. She opened her mouth and tried to speak, but couldn't. Her vocal cords were still in the process of regrowing themselves. Ron quickly dashed to her side, and Tama reached out to grab onto Ron, but the attempted movement was too much for her, and she fell off the bed to the floor instead. Ron hugged her, and Tama clung tightly to Ron's back as her neck continued regenerating. It was then that her vocal cords finally returned to normal. Tama Indo's screams filled the entire morgue, giving a hint of the pain that she'd suffered before she died. And her wounds, which were now exposed to the air after her awakening, brought her a new flavor of suffering unlike anything she'd ever experienced before. Sakura had better properly apologize to Indo later. Ron could hear the sound of flesh regrowing right next to her ears. Tama finally stopped screaming, began to take deep, heaving breaths. Her grasp on Ron's back relaxed slightly, but she still apparently had no intentions of letting go. Indo, it's okay. You can hold on to me. Tama was more than willing to accept Ron's invitation, and her fingers clutched at Ron with redoubled force. After a long, long time, the morgue finally fell silent, leaving only Tama's quiet breathing. Does it still hurt? Tama shook her head, releasing her grip on Ron and leaning back slightly. Ron didn't immediately let her go, and continued to hold on to Tama in her lap. It's much better. Thank you, Ibuki-san, spoke Tama Indo with pale, white lips. Where's Asakura-san? Pointed her out at the culprit here. Didn't you? She left. Oh no, she must be mad at me. I must go to apologize to her, quickly. Tama immediately began struggling in Ron's lap, trying to stand up, but Ron pushed her right back down. The hell do you mean apologize? The way Asakura treated you, she should be the one apologizing to you. Absolutely not. Asakura-san can do anything she likes to me, but when she was twisting my head,
I'm sure I must have made an unsightly expression, even gotten my blood on Asakura-san's face.
Tama was starting to cry again. She hadn't even seemed this tense when her wounds were regenerating.
Asakura-san must be feeling quite unwell. I have to go and apologize to her quickly.
Oh, absolutely not. Don't you dare apologize to her.
But
no wonder Asakura doesn't want to see Indo's face. If Indo showed up and immediately started apologizing to Asakura, I bet she'd start coughing up blood from sheer infuriation. Look, if you apologize, you're just going to make Asakura miserable. What you need to do right now is go up to her, point your finger at her face, and start screaming at her. How could you do something like that to me? Something like that. And then maybe ignore her for a few days. That'll probably cheer Asakura up.
why? I don't get it.
Just take my word for it. Asakura told me that was what she wanted while you were dead. She wanted you to do those things. Tama seemed somewhat confused. She blinked her huge eyes as her lips began to finally began to regain color.
Did Asakura-san really say that?
Ron nodded her head with as much confidence as she could.
Very well, I understand. Since it's something that Asakura told me to do, I'll do as she says.
Tama picked herself off the ground and dusted off her hospital gown.
And after I say that, Asakura-san gets mad at me, then, I shouldn't say just what I'll do to you, Ibuki-san.
Nope. Indo, you're scaring me. Trust me, you don't think that Asakura would be such a petty person, right?
The problem's not Asakura-san, but with me, though. Do I really have the right to scream something like that at Asakura-san?
It's because you're like this that Asakura hopes that you can change yourself. Surely you understand as well. Having an inferiority complex isn't a good thing. Tama jumped in shock at Ron's words. It had been obvious to everybody, after all, even if Tama had thought that she'd been doing a good job of hiding it.
Okay, I understand. I'll try, then.
Jesus Christ. Ron sat on the floor and sighed in relief, feeling incredibly exhausted. That was exhausting. Saying all that chicken soup for the soul, inspirational cliche stuff, ugh. Even though I just did my best to copy how Miss Sakura used to speak when she was trying to comfort me, it's just not my style, and I never want to have to say anything like that ever again. Foreshadowing is a literary device in which at least the case itself was decently fun. Made me think a bit. I feel pretty accomplished for having solved it. Ron stood up as she mentally reviewed the details of the case one last time. At the same time, the door to the morgue creaked open. It's over? Miss Sakura, what are you doing here? Well, I was really worried about you. I've been waiting outside the whole time. Miss Sakura. I love you so much, Miss Sakura. So, you heard everything I said to Asakura, then? Yes. You do have a way with words, Ron. I was just trying to imagine what the past you would have said in the same situation. That's how. That really is quite different from what I'd have said then. But Makoto and Tama's relationship has turned out to be more complex than meets the eye. I think your choice was correct. Maybe it'll help the two of them out. All of these relationships feel toxic in some way. But none of this is good. Yeah, they being on and Ron. Ron is enough toxicity in one woman for an entire relationship, and then some. So. The image of Asakura's suicide flashed before Ron's eyes again. She found herself sinking into uncertainty again. Is there really any meaning in these things she was doing? You know what? Looking at Ron suddenly felt that she had no need for uncertainty anymore. All she needed to do was do what she did before, and tell Sakura whenever she was faced with any kind of problem. She'd surely be able to find a solution to anything. Miss Sakura, there's something I want to tell you. Oh, is Asakura entering her goth phase? She looks so pissed off. After Ron finished telling An about Ron's memories of Koizumi and Asakura, the two of them returned to the dorm where the other students had already gathered in anticipation of lunch. Ron took the opportunities to tell the others the truth of the case as well. Oh, so that's why they didn't come down and eat with us. I bet you they're having an argument in their room right now. Yurino-san, please don't joke about something like that right now. Sai shrugged.
I was quite shocked when I saw Indo-san wander into the room this morning. Into the dorm this morning. The case was solved before I could even begin to make heads or tails of it. That's Ibuki-san for you, I guess.
I know you said no joking, but this is actually kind of serious, isn't it? What if we check up on Makoto's room later and it turns out that Tama's been corpseified again? That'd be the worst. As soon as Aya finished speaking, Miho gave her a punch to the back of her head. But judging from everyone's expression, they had the same concerns as well, more or less. You know what? I'm gonna go up and check on him. You all keep enjoying the food. Sai stood up and left the dining room and headed up to the second floor. Oh no. Asakura will listen to Indo properly, right? She wanted Indo to shout at her, didn't she? Don't tell me I messed up, did I? I don't want to get vivisected by Tama Indo. Before long, Sai came back downstairs with a faint grin and with Asakura in tow. Relax, they're having plenty of fun. Indo needs to rest upstairs for a bit, so I just brought her down for now. I wasn't done talking to her yet. Whatever. At the sight of Asakura's transformation, Ron thought that she ought to open her mouth and say something, but Asakura ignored her and sat down straight at the table. I guess I'll catch her later. Ron let out a breath and lowered her head to start eating, but at that moment Miho slid her chair over to Ron and pressed her mouth against Ron's ear. Ibuki-san, there's something I need to tell you. What is it? You're being quite mysterious. Miho lowered her head. Tonight, I'm gonna be switching bedrooms with Yurino-san. Huh? A room swap? You? But doesn't that mean... Miho turned her head aside, her eyes focusing on who knew where, and continued speaking. That's right. It means we'll be sleeping in the same room tonight. Chapter 1 complete. A chance to increase one of your stats has been acquired. Current attributes are Investigation 6, Charisma 6, Alacrity 4. I have improved my investigation. So she's rooming with us now. I feel like she is having some issues with Aya. Maybe we'll find out now. Will you at least tell me why you want to swap rooms with Yurino first? I got into a fight with Aya. Miho took a seat and gestured at Ron to sit down as well. There we go. This is definitely Worm Purgatory. Yeah. There are so many parts of this, though, that don't quite add up yet, and I need to see how they connect into things. I feel like there's got to be something more complex going on than it's just lesbian purgatory. Lesbian worm purgatory. Looks like she has a lot to talk about. Maybe it has something to do with what I saw in the kitchen a few days ago. I sure couldn't tell you two had a fight. Well, it isn't the first time we've had such an argument like this. I got into a big fight with her around when we graduated from middle school. That argument was so bad, I almost decided I never wanted to see her again. It was all Aya's fault, and so I was really mad at her, to the point where I decided to go to a different high school from her and terminate our relationship for good. Sounds serious. What even is this? Have I become Takeya's private relationship advisor now? Before this, I thought that maybe our relationship would improve, since ultimately we wound up attending the same high school anyways. But whenever romance has come up in our recent conversations, it always reminds me of how she hasn't changed at all. Yeesh. We really are just heading towards Gossip Town now, aren't we? Maybe I can try to use this opportunity to ask some important questions, though. So how come you and Toyama wound up in the same high school anyways? Well, nothing particularly special. My parents recommended this place to me, and Aya's family did the same for her. I thought this was a very strange place at first, but now I found that my classmates are all quite amicable, and that the educational system is quite distinctive. It's honestly pretty nice. Is it? You can't even be certain if you'll properly participate in the college entrance examinations if you stay here. Miho blinked her eyes as if she hadn't expected their conversation would swerve onto this topic. Well, that's not a problem. We've all got student IDs, so we can go to the city to take our exam when the time comes. It's been so long since I've asked a question like that, I almost forgot how the answers they give in response are only barely coherent. I guess there's little meaning in asking them how they got here at this point. Ever since I recovered my memories of Asakura and Koizumi-sensei, it's become obvious that they did not arrive here through any remotely conventional means, so there's probably no use in wondering about it. Alright, so why exactly did you have an argument with Toyama then? Honestly, I don't have much interest in their relationship issues. The two of them aren't like me, Asakura and Indo. Even if they had a fight, these two are the type who would probably make up overnight anyway. At least, I can't imagine Toyama giving Takei the cold shoulder. I don't want to say. That response made the corner of Ron's eyes twitch in irritation. If I don't tell you why we had the fight, are you not going to let me stay in your room? Nah, I don't care that much. Miho smiled, put her hands on her thighs, and leaned forward slightly. It's because I think Aya and Yuruno-san get along well. So You call that an argument? Seems to me like you're just looking out for Toyama. The phone in Miho's pocket lightly vibrated, and she unlocked it and took a look. It's a message from Yuruno-san. She said that Tom has gone downstairs now. We should go down and pick lots again, too. Oh, right, I almost forgot that was a whole thing. Ron and Miho headed downstairs together. The others had already gathered in the dining room, with the cards used for picking lots already placed on the dinner table as well. Tama's eyes were puffy and red, and she was sniffling a little. But she still stood next to Asakura and held on to one of Asakura's sleeves with her tiny hands. Seeing that, Ron relaxed a bit. Looks like Indo will be fine. Asakura's still looking like she couldn't give a damn either way. Ron took her place next to An and took her arm too. As though she and Tama were in a hand-holding contest. Alright then, let's begin drawing the lots. I think this is a good time for an ad break, though. As y'all know, in order to avoid pre-roll ads in general, because those are annoying as shit, I have to run a 3-minute ad break every hour I stream. Every hour I stream. Every 2 hours. I daisy chain them back and forth. Whatever. Either way, I'm gonna run an ad break now. Survivors? God, subscribers. Where the fuck is my head today? Subscribers can hang out and chat. If you're not a subscriber, I'll see you in a few. He's a survivor, ladies and gentlemen. I wonder if the card lot drawing is fully rigged. There are certain aspects of this where it seems to suggest that we have a lot of, like, breadth of branching paths, but it's not transparent necessarily about, I guess, how that's happening. Maybe it's just the fact that we don't have any information. Wurgatory? Worm Purgatory? You want me to address Wurgatory? Oh, for subscribers who are still around, I know most of you have the first founder badge, but I did make subscriber badges as well. At we have now for the channel. They're little moths. Are they not split on mobile? Do you have the big first next to your name? Yeah, the big first is that badge. What I'm looking for. The first 10 people of subscribers are counted as founders. And they get that big ol' first instead. Though you can toggle it if you want. But these are the badges that we have now. And how I have it set up. I'm still working on emotes and things like that. I got a couple of ideas, but it's going to take some time to put those together because it's really hard to figure out how to what's the word I'm looking for? Translate readability to something that small. So I know there are people who like specialize in doing it, so I may look at that. But applying a gradient to a thing that I already made is really easy, so I made these sub badges. But the ads are done. Welcome back, ad watchers. Let's get back to it. What card should I pick? Should I always pick this lower left one? I'm always going to pick this lower left one. Ron took a card. Its underside wasn't painted red. No problems here. Next up is the victim. Ron took a card. Miho Takei was written on it. I do, actually. I get, presumably, I think it was like a 50-something% ad share. It depends on how much I do them. But I do get a percentage of the ad revenue for folks who watch ads. It's gonna be pennies, but like, hey, please don't pull me into the romance novel you and Toyama have going on. All right, the drawing is concluded. Everyone may now enjoy free time for the rest of the afternoon. After Miho spoke, Asakura turned and went upstairs. Tama quickly followed her. It is neat, yeah. I should visit Asakura when I've got the time later. Real curious what she and Endo have been talking to each other about. Free time! Alright, we can talk to Asakura, we can talk to Koizumi, we can talk to Endo, we can talk to Toyama. I think let's talk to Asakura, Endo, and Toyama in that order, and we'll ignore Hinata and Yuruno for this run. That's what I'm most interested in. I love angry Asakura. Just you. Ron opened the door, but Tama was nowhere to be seen. Only Asakura was in the room, and she was sitting in a chair with one leg crossed over the other. She'd loosened her jacket and even unbuttoned the uppermost few buttons of her shirt. Her hairpin had vanished into an unknown location. Oh, so you're here for Indo, Ron. And here I thought you'd come to visit me. It's unbelievable how different you look. Now there's 2 Yurunos running around this school. Ugh. What, is that not okay? Nah, it's actually pretty nice. Ron sat down on the opposite side of the desk as Asakura. Excuse me. She didn't expect that this would actually suit her more either, huh? Maybe if someone had helped her change like this before, then Asakura wouldn't have killed herself. Was it Indo who helped her? Hey, did you say something to Indo after she came back to life? Sure. I told her to yell at you for a while. Asakura rested a finger on her chin and grinned cheerfully. She did try her best to berate me, but she mostly was crying so hard that I couldn't even understand what she was saying. Really? Looks to me like you've taken both her words and tears to heart. Asakura didn't correct Ron. She shrugged and continued. After this, I'm probably going to adjust the way I interact with her as well. There won't be a need to be so close with her, the way things were before. Eh? What do you mean, no need to be so close? Don't panic. I just meant relative to before. Asakura grinned, pulling her legs off the table and leaning forward, letting her head rest in one hand. I suppose you thought I was Indo's master before, right? But from now on, who knows? Maybe she'll be my master. Do you two not know how to fool around in any other way? Asakura's attitude had convinced Ron that the relationship between her and Tama would only get better from then on, and in a way that was much more normal compared to how it used to be. So where's Indo? Library. She went all by herself. Won't your master be sad that she didn't bring you along? I see you're enjoying yourself at my expense too. Ha! She went on her own. It looks like she's found a project that she wants to do without me there to fuss over her. It looks like she's found a project she wants to do even without me there to fuss over her, and she seems quite invested in it. That's nice to hear. Ron stood up and pushed the chair back where it came from. Looks like your two's issues have been resolved, so I'll be going. Ron. Thank you for getting Indo to say those things to me. Made me feel a little better, at least. Really? Asakura's straightforward attitude made Ron want to say something else to tease her a bit more, but it's already pointless anyways. What? Nothing. I'm out. See you around. When Ron reached the door, she felt Asakura grab her by the wrist. I can't help you with Sakura's memory loss issues. But anything else, such as... Asakura paused, unsure whether she should continue. Her eyes flitted from the floor to the ceiling, then eventually settled back on Ron. I don't really know what I can help you with, but if you need help with anything, find me. Ron remembered how, the first time they'd met, Asakura had said almost the exact same thing to Ron. This time you sound a lot more sincere. Don't tease me. Grinning, Asakura let go of Ron's wrist. Trust me, when I need your help, I won't hesitate to ask. See you later. As Ron departed Asakura's room, she noticed that the door to the next room over was only halfway closed. That's Toyama and Takei's room, isn't it? Ron approached the door and, through the crack in the door, saw that Miho Takei was fussing about with something in the room. Takei, what brought you back here? Yeah, Yabuki-san. I was just organizing some of my things to bring with me. Eh? This close. If you want to use anything, you might as well just come back to your room to get them. I don't want to run into Aya. If you want to find her, head to the music room. She's definitely there. I know. You want me to go find her, don't you? Well, we probably will, but I want to see what the hell Tama's working on right now. Indo. A handful of books were stacked neatly atop one of the library's tables. Tama Indo had been engrossed in some of them, but when she heard the sound of Ron's voice, she immediately raised her head, a smile filling her face. I hope I'm not interrupting you.
Oh, no, Ibuki-san. I was just about to take a break.
First time I've seen you in the library by yourself. Ron sat down next to Tama and saw that she had opened a notebook in front of herself and seemed to be writing something in it. This must be what Asakura meant by Indo's new project.
I feel like I've realized many things since I've talked to Asakura-san. I used to think that following Asakura-san around everywhere would be the best for her, but now I've come to understand that maybe the best thing for us is to spend some time by ourselves, right?
I mean, I don't think that's the real issue. Asakura would like nothing more than to swaddle the two of you up nice and tight together in the same blanket each night, right?
That's so.
Tama blinked her big eyes again.
I do sleep together with Asakura-san frequently.
Asakura, you are an actual criminal. So you think that spending some time apart from her might result in a change to your relationship?
That's right. Plus, I want to write down some things to show Asakura-san. I have a lot of things that I want to tell her.
Well, okay. As long as I can confirm that you're not going to do anything to me. Even if you can't be as close with Asakura-san as you used to before, I still think that everything worked out for the better in the end. At least now Asakura is willing to speak her true feelings to you now. Only from now on can the relationship between the two of you start to make proper progress. Ron felt like she was talking too much, so she reached out and gave Indo's hair bun a poke to try to alleviate the awkwardness.
I understand, Ibuki-san. Thank you.
No need to thank me. After all, Tama cocked her head in confusion, waiting for Ron to finish speaking. Ron thought to herself about her memories of Asakura and her knowledge of the original time period from which Indo hailed, and decided to give up on the cliché she was about to speak, choosing something else instead. After all, these are the choices you've made for yourself. Less purgatory and more of a make your lesbian relationship less toxic purgatory. This is like a marriage counseling for awkward teen lesbians. Alright, let's see what the fuck's up with Aya right now. As soon as Ron opened the door to the music room, Aya, who'd been sitting on the piano bench, spoke up. Oh ho! My romantic nemesis has appeared. Come on. Clearly Takei was the one who made the request to swap bedrooms with Yuruno. Or marriage counseling. Worm therapist would be a phenomenal job title. I want to be known as worm therapist. Aya put down her guitar with a grin. Yeah, exactly. Rehabilitating the toxic Yuri. Just to make it normal Yuri. Detoxifying. I know. Just joking. Then, pursing her lips, she made a hesitant inquiry. Miho, did she say anything? Looks like Toyama really wants to make up with Takei, more than Takei herself does. She told me that you two originally weren't supposed to attend the same high school, but she didn't explain why you had your most recent fight exactly. It looked like the two of you had a serious argument? Oh, for sure. It was mega serious, and it was all Miho's fault, you know? Ah, the kind of argument where both sides think it's the other side's fault. An incredibly commonplace and incredibly frustrating structure for domestic drama. Right after Aya made her complaint against Miho, though, her expression immediately softened. The only reason I'm daring to say something like that is because we're attending the same school. We actually had to split up for 3 years. There's no way I would have been able to endure it. I'll probably go with my tail between my legs to Mio and pitifully ask her forgiveness in a day or two. She's not like me, though. Miho excels at everything. Even without me, she can manage her emotions all by herself and live her own life perfectly well. So, if she said she was never going to talk to me again, she'd actually be capable of carrying through with the threat. No way I could bear it, though. I understand how you feel. Miss Sakura was angry at me. I'd do everything I could to make up with her as well. Though I've never had an argument with Miss Sakura before. Are you here to just show off, Ron-chan? Ron sat down on the piano bench next to Aya and patted her shoulders. Welcome in, Myth. We found out that the tiny shrine girl and the stuck-up British girl had a really toxic, fucked-up relationship. We found out that the British girl had killed herself in our present time and was back to life. And she's grumpy and bitchy now. It's real exciting. Now we're trying to figure out the relationship between the stoner chick and the bitchy one. So, Toyama is the disadvantaged side of this relationship. Makes me sympathetic to her plight. So, just what was the cause of your argument anyways? If you want to compare Takei with Miss Sakura, then I'm on your side here. Why don't you tell me about it? All of these girls are super normal. They all have super healthy relationships, too. No way. Eh? Mio was way smarter than me, but she didn't tell you why we fought either, right? So if she didn't tell you, I can't either. Surely she has her own reasons for it. But I guess if I were in her shoes, I might do the same, holding Miss Sakura's wants as paramount no matter when or where. Oh, okay, but what are you going to do about it then? Just let it play out on its own? It was Aya's turn to pat Ron's shoulders this time. That's a problem for me and Miho. I'm sure you got lots of other things to worry about, don't you, Ron-chan? Compared to us, your problems are more important. Your own problems are more important. You're absolutely correct. I don't need to concern myself with their relationship issues. I should just concentrate all of my efforts on Miss Sakura's situation. But helping them resolve this situation might very well allow me to unlock my memories pertaining to the two of them, just like with Asakura. What's up with you now? Ron shook her head and got up, preparing to leave the music room. All I can do is let nature take its course. Both of them are resisting outside interventions, and even if I wanted to do something to help, I don't even have a point of entry to the problem. She stood by the door and waved goodbye to Aya, who answered her with a strum of her guitar. Miss Sakura is here too. Let's discuss it with her before I make any decisions. Ron strolled idly through the school's courtyard as she sent a text to An with her phone. The phone auto-completed with An after she inputted the character for Sakura, and the screen presented her with a prompt to call the Sakura An in her contacts list. Just as Ron was about to press the call button, a text message appeared at the top of the screen. Ron, do you have time? Come to the observation deck of the dorm. I want to talk to you about the situation with Koizumi and Makoto. Ron immediately sent back An an affirmative response. Miss Sakura truly understands my soul in the way that only a soulmate can. Let's go see her immediately. Ron. Miss Sakura! Ron did what she always did when she saw An. She quickly stepped up to her and embraced her before taking her hand. Where have you been this afternoon? I haven't seen you around campus at all. I was thinking about the things you told me. An took Ron and led her to the viewing deck's bench where they sat down together. Miss Sakura's being so proactive today. What you told me about those memories, I believe they're all real. Perhaps the others are all simply tied to you in some nebulous way. And as only the two of us seem to be suffering from amnesia, perhaps I can regain my memories by doing what you've been doing. Ron held her hand tightly and rubbed her fingers repeatedly. She hesitated about whether to speak or not. But, Miss Sakura, the two of us differ significantly as well. The memories I'm missing all seem to be directly related to the other students here, whereas you've forgotten practically everything, right, Miss Sakura? I feel like it'd be very difficult to regain all of your memories just through the people currently here. An, noticing that Ron's hands were trembling slightly, interwove her own fingers with Ron's to still them. It's no matter. I was just thinking that I'd give it my best try, since you're really hopeful about me recovering my memories. If it doesn't work, we can try something else. Miss Sakura, I know that. No, never mind. Miss Sakura has been expressing with various degrees of subtlety that she doesn't want to recover her memories, since the current Miss Sakura, such a thing would be more or less equivalent to dying. There's something else important, though. The process by which I've been recovering my memories is clearly not conventional. That's why I think it's very likely that there's some conscious entity causing me to lose my memories, and that I recovered those memories by meeting certain conditions relating to those memories. Something conscious? So, you're saying that our memory loss might have been caused by someone? Yes, the thing that brought us here could also very well be the conscious entity that's caused our memory loss. so you want to find it. It'd probably be difficult. It was capable of bringing me here while avoiding my detection, and also capable of hiding from us all the way up to the present. It's not likely I'll be able to find it unless it actively appears before me. But what I have to do after this is quite clear. There must be some sort of meaning to recovering everyone's memories, or else there'd be no point to putting all those people connected to me in this place. Well, we got plenty of time ahead of us. Let's take it slow and see where we end up. Maybe I'll be able to remember something as well during the process. After all, my relationship with you is quite special. So, maybe the people connected to you will also turn out to be familiar to me as well. That's true. That's a major possibility. After all, you were practically the only person that I had a positive relationship with back then, Miss Sakura. Ann looked like she didn't quite know how to respond to that. After an awkward moment, she spoke again. Ron, have you considered the situation where I never managed to recover my memories? Of course I have. But I'm never giving up, no matter what. After all, it only took me 4 years to find you. In order to be able to return to the life I had with you, Miss Sakura, I'm willing to try anything. After Ron's finished speaking, Ann clearly seemed somewhat cowed and didn't reopen her mouth. At that point, Ron's phone vibrated. After indicating her intent to Ann, she picked up the phone. Koizumi-sensei? Ron pressed the answer key. She had apparently interrupted Koizumi in the middle of taking a deep breath, resulting in Koizumi starting to cough uncontrollably. Is everything fine, Koizumi? Hearing Ron speak Koizumi's name, Ann looked up at Ron. No, everything's fine, Ibuki-san. So, what is it? Could you come to the dormitory building entrance after dinner? There's something important I want to tell you. Can't you just tell me over the phone? No. There's something I need to give you, as well. Agree to meet, conditions not yet met. Okay. This is the first time it's just been like, no. Not, you need a certain thing. Ron had originally wanted to agree to Koizumi's request, but after she opened her mouth, she clamped her teeth tight again, and only managed to spit out a few words. I'm sorry, I'd rather not. Only the light sound of breathing came from the other end of the phone, followed by Koizumi's response in a cheerful voice. It's okay. Sorry for bothering you, Ibuki-san. After Ron hung up, Ann closed in immediately. What did Hinata say? She said she wanted to meet up with me after dinner, but as soon as I think about what happened between me and her in the past, I start feeling like I don't know how I can possibly face her. Miss Sakura, what should I do? Can I make up for my mistakes with Koizumi-sensei? The present Koizumi? Ann herself wished she had an answer for the hardball question that Ron had just tossed at her. You don't need to rush. There's still plenty of time. Ron nodded. Whether it was right or wrong, it was Ann's suggestion, and that alone was enough to let her trust in it without hesitation. Okay, I'll try that, I guess. And that'll be it for now. I got my language class tomorrow, and I'd like to head back to prepare for it. Okay, see you in a bit at dinner then, Miss Sakura. Tonight's dinner was much less lively than usual. Though Miho and Aya still sat next to each other, both of them were simply mechanically shoveling food into their mouths with their heads lowered. On the other side of the table, Asakura and Tama sat together as well, with Tama occasionally glancing at Asakura. They remained silent as well, however, and Tama was conspicuously not serving food to Asakura as she'd done at previous dinners. Ron made the occasional bit of chit-chat with Ann, but due to the atmosphere at the dinner table, they couldn't exactly have a free conversation either. At least Koizumi looked the way she always did, eating slowly and methodically. Maybe I'll take another stroll after dinner. Miss Sakura's preparing her lessons, so I probably shouldn't disturb her. Ron turned her gaze and saw that even Sai seemed to be in a low mood. What, even she's in a funk? I guess I should finish eating quickly and skedaddle. let's wander around the dorm for a bit before showering. Go downstairs. You can go to Takei and Ibuki's room. You're in Ayama's. What's downstairs? The kitchen. The kitchen. Just the kitchen. There's a sound coming from the kitchen. Are you still at work? Sayuruno stood next to the kitchen sink, preparing ingredients for the next day's meal. It seemed that there was a lot to do. The whole kitchen counter was occupied. What's with all the stuff? Everyone looked like they were in a bad mood at dinner today. I'm gonna make some more nutritious food tomorrow, maybe cheer them up a bit. So that's why she looked frustrated at dinner today. Why does Yuruno have to be such a great person? Want me to help you out? No offense, but with how long it took you to make those meat skewers, I doubt you'd actually be able to help much. Ron took a glance at her. Saya was wearing gloves and working on processing a bunch of vegetables, which Ron couldn't even name. At the moment, she seemed to be picking away at some of the wilted bits. Well, I could help you wipe the table or something then. Sai nodded without turning around. Looking at Sai busying herself with a mountain of work in front of her, Ron couldn't help but want to say something to her. I really like your cooking. I really like your cooking. It used to be that I didn't particularly care a lot about eating, but recently I've really begun looking forward to our meals. That's so. Sai didn't turn around as she spoke, but anybody could tell that she sounded quite pleased. My little sister was just like you. She liked my cooking a lot as well. Really, I only started learning how to cook for her. There was a period of time where she only wanted to eat food that I made, for whatever reason. So I did my best to learn a lot of recipes so that she could enjoy her meals better. Oh, so you're a siscon. No! You know what? You're right. I got a sister complex, so what? I haven't been able to see her since I came here. I wondered how she's doing. Sai seemed a little downcast, thinking about her little sister. Ron didn't like seeing Sai that way. In Ron's perspective, Sayurino was someone who oughtn't have that kind of look on her face. I'm sure she's waiting for her big sister to come home and make her plenty of tasty things to eat. Sai smiled as she turned around. Ron thought that was an expression that suited Sai's face much better. You're right, Ibuki. You're right. Can I go back to the kitchen again? No. I don't see why they give me the choices for this one, I guess, because they're the only two that take time are the only two options that I have. From Aya's room, Ron could hear the sounds of a guitar being plucked at. The notes started and stopped intermittently, and didn't seem to form a complete tune at all. You can tell that she's in a terrible mood just by listening. She knocked on the door, and after receiving a response, entered the room. Oh ho, my romantic rival. And here I thought it was Miho here to tell me to stop making a racket. Aya pressed down on the guitar strings to mute them and greeted Ron with a smile. Don't tease me. So, is there anything you need? Aya set the guitar aside by the wall as she spoke. Nothing. I heard the sound, so I came to check it out. Don't tell me you're here to take pity on me, are you? Dang, busted. Of course not. I'm just passing by. Then please leave me alone if you'd be so kind. Aya made a theatrical show of slowly reaching for her guitar, so that I can continue to occupy myself by playing tragic breakup songs. If you're so sad about it, then you should hurry up and make up with Takei already. Absolutely not. I can't make concessions about this. At least not while we're still in the same place. This matter is very important to me, you know? Smiling, Aya pointed 2 fingers at Ron. Just like how An is important to you. Aya stretched her legs out straight, repeatedly tapping the tips of her toes together. Ron discovered that she apparently enjoyed this action greatly. I've already been with her for 14 years, and it's just the beginning. Sure that Miho will be the most important person in my life. He really is a lot like me. Makes me want to help them reconcile even more now. In a conflict between Toyama and Takei, I'm sure I'd stand on Toyama's side. Well, if that's the case, then you better figure out how to make up with her quickly. I don't think I could stand to be apart from my beloved for more than a day. Aya nodded, flashing Ron a goofy smile. Mm-hmm. Hearing that from you is just so convincing. Ron turned and was about to take her leave when Aya stopped her. Ron-chan, since you're already here, how about we shower together tonight? I wanted to chat with you a bit longer. Toyama doesn't want Takei to shower with me, huh? Sure. I'll come find you once I've gotten ready. I don't want your relationship with Takei to get any worse either. Aya smiled. Her hands were mashed together in front of her. Oh, Ron-chan, you're so... Why don't you focus your cleverness elsewhere? About time. Let's go find Toyama. Walks out the door, turns around immediately, walks back in to get Toyama. Actually, I'm good now. Ron and Aya arrived at the bathroom. The baths were already full of hot water. The floor had been thoroughly cleaned as well, and even the chairs and toiletries had been arranged neatly. It didn't look as if anybody else had used the bathroom yet. We're not the first ones to wash, are we? Oh, that's Tama-chan. After she washes, she always does a bit of cleaning before she leaves. She does look like the kind of person who'd do that. Ron relaxed her body, letting herself slide almost completely into the water, and closed her eyes as she soaked in the warmth that now suffused her whole body. Aya, on the other hand, stretched lazily and let out a weird moan. Whenever it's time to take a bath, musical inspiration just pops right up into my head. These past 2 days, I haven't been able to write a single note down, even though I've been spending hours on end toying with my guitar in the music room. Maybe it's because there's not much else you can do in the bath, so it's easier to focus your attention. Ron shifted slightly in the bath, blinked, and glanced at Aya. Don't tell me you're trying to write Takei a romantic song so that she'll forgive you or something. Well, that's not it. Though that does sound like the kind of romantic thing I would like to do, isn't it? But Miho isn't particularly interested in my music. Aya looked down as she spoke and watched her hands fiddle around with the water. I don't think I've had a chance to properly talk with Toyama about her music. Let's see if I can remember anything with a conversation on this topic. Let's change topics. I want to talk to you about something else. Ron hadn't even been able to open her mouth to keep asking about her music before Aya changed the direction of the conversation. When you were telling us all about the incident with Tama, I would have never expected it to have such a huge effect on Makoto. He's practically a whole different person now. And then Miho said she was going over to your room, and you started showing up and talking to me about this and that. You enjoy being a mediator? Like, the kind who helps other people with their relationships or something. Don't be ridiculous. Honestly, dealing with the relationships of other people is the thing that I'm least competent with. Asakura had wanted to express her malcontent feelings for some time. Indo's murder was just her snapping after she'd bottled herself up to her limit. I just happened to be there when it all blew up. And I have even less of a clue with you two. As far as I'm concerned, the best outcome would be if the two of you decided to hold hands all the way back to your room again, all on your own, without me needing to lift a finger. Aya reached out and gave Ron a pat on the shoulder, seeming quite satisfied with the answer. Now that's the Ron I know. Not concerned about anybody other than An. Ron couldn't help but raise an eyebrow after hearing that and shook her head. Isn't that a little exaggerated? You're right. If you didn't actually care about anybody with An, then you wouldn't be so nice with the class president either. Wait, what do you mean about Koizumi? Mio and I have long since noticed. Don't worry, we won't tell An. The two of you, forget it. She and I aren't going any further anyways, so there's no need to bring it up again. See, I really think that your boundaries for the people that you're concerned about are quite different from what most people would expect. After Aya finished, she lifted herself out of the bath with both arms before Ron could have a chance to respond. But I suppose these things aren't all that important for you anyways. We should probably wrap up soon and head out. Mia doesn't like it when she has to shower late. Ron nodded and followed Aya out of the bath. You may say that you're in the middle of a fight, but every action you take shows your concern for Takei. Aya shrugged, pulling open the bathroom door, and answered Ron with a tilt of the head. Well, I'm the kind of person that's easy to push around after all. After Ron and Aya left the bathroom, they had heard the sound of flowing water from the kitchen. The two of them headed over in wordless agreement. Yuruno? Are you still preparing food? Sai seemed to have been startled by Ron's sudden words and spun around to answer. Ugh, you people are so quiet when you walk around, I swear! You scared the heck out of me. Just finished washing everything. Now gotta prepare some of the more labor-intensive stuff. There's 8 mouths to feed now, after all, so it's gonna take a bit more time. Doesn't look half bad. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's lunch already. Toyama, did the thought of giving Yuruno a hand not occur to you at all? Yeah. You two don't need to stand around watching. Get back to your rooms. I can handle it on my own. Alright. Call me if you need any help. Sai waved her hand and went back to her work. It's so much easier just to kick back and relax with Sai around. Right. So, you and Takei should hurry up and stop making trouble for her. You're totally just saying that for your own sake. Smiling, Aya headed up the stairs with Ron, and each of them returned to their own rooms. As soon as Ron entered, Miho, who'd been sitting on the lowest bunk, immediately rose. Did I say anything? I ought to have just made you two shower together. Both of you keep asking about each other, and I'm stuck in the middle. What'd she ask? She asked if I enjoyed being a mediator. I said of course not. Ron's answer seemed to cause Miho to hesitate, as if she had something to say but wasn't sure she could say it. She ultimately just nodded, and grabbed her towel and pajamas and left the room. The way these two are so concerned for each other, it makes me even more curious just what they fought over. Ron dove into bed and turned over to avoid the light. Maybe I'll just ask again tomorrow. The next morning, Miho actively offered to help Ron sort out her hair, which had gotten messy from sleeping, and even ironed her uniform for her. It made Ron start to understand how Makoto Asakura must have felt. Where did she even get an iron from? After the two of them left the room together, they found that the other students were blocking up the hallway and discussing something. Why do I feel like I've been in a situation like this before? Ron quickly walked over to An's side and took a hold of her arm. Good morning, Miss Sakura. What's everyone gathered around here for? Good morning. Your hair is unusually neat this morning, Ron. Usually it's a bit messier. Yeah. So, what's going on? An didn't immediately answer Ron. Her light breathing tickled Ron's heart. Hinata's dead. Ron's hand dropped free from An's arm. Even though she knew this was just another round of the killing game, the calmness in An's voice was still enough to make her heart skip half a beat. After that, an overwhelming flood of shame from her memories submerged her. She poked her head out of that swamp of shame as best she could, trying to catch her breath. Then she shoved her way through the crowd of students and forcefully, until she came to its forefront. Koizumi. Ron stood on the second-floor balcony and looked downwards. Hinata Koizumi was dangling, dead in midair. Oh, boy. Unlucky. Man, I feel like that exact pan was the thing that they did in Doki Doki Literature Club. To think that Koizumi-sensei would kill herself. Is it my fault? If I hadn't harshly rejected her invitation, but rather tried to extend even the slightest bit of affection to her. Ron took a deep breath. She didn't want her emotions to overrun all of her thinking. No, calm down. It's not certain to be a suicide. It's also very possible that it's only been disguised as a suicide. Ron? What's wrong? Nothing. I was just thinking. Well, if it wasn't a suicide, then the killer sure was a real dumbass this time around, committing a murder at the dorms. Mm-hmm. Everyone's paired up by the room, so if someone was conspicuously absent, it should be quite easy to notice. And there could have been people moving about the dorms at any point. One mistake and they'd have been seen in the act. Up until we all went to bed last night, Koizumi was still alive. The window of time where the murder could have happened is very short. All we have to do is compare what we were doing last night, and it should be pretty easy to start finding clues. Let's start by asking An, then. An, you're roommates with Hinata. You must have been the last to see her, right? Before An could answer, Sai interjected. The last to see Koizumi was probably me. I prepared food late into the night, and last night, and after Koizumi finished with her shower, I even saw her wave hello to me. Just Koizumi? Miss Sakura, you didn't shower with Koizumi yesterday? Makes me uncomfortable to even ask that. That's right. When I asked Hinata to come with me, she told me to go on ahead. She looked like she was in a poor mood, so I didn't force her to come with me. Koizumi didn't speak to me after I returned either. She waited until it was almost time to sleep before she went downstairs to shower. She even turned off the lights. Told me to go to bed first. Said something along the lines of that she might take a long time washing. See, sure sounds a lot like suicide. Has the class rep been down in the dumps lately? Ron could imagine countless reasons that Koizumi might have chosen to kill herself, most of them having to do with Ron. Let's first ask everyone when exactly they went to use the showers, and use that to start building a timeline of last night's events. Yurino, you washed first? Yep. I was gonna go with Toyama, but she washed with you, I think. And then after that was Asakura and Indo. I even had a short conversation with Toyama about how well Indo tidied up the bathroom.
Thank you for your praise, Ibuki-san.
And then it was me, and finally it was Hinata. Alright, let's write all that down and start investigating the corpse. We should wait to get Koizumi down until we're done gathering information. My gut says on. Koizumi-sensei, you wouldn't kill yourself, right? A chair from the kitchen laid on the floor. Whether the killer had put it there intentionally, or Koizumi had kicked it over in the death throes of her suicide, it seemed that there were no clues to be had from it. Ron circled the chair a few times and saw nothing noteworthy. Koizumi was wearing a white sleeping gown. She must have changed into it after she'd washed. Ron noticed some detritus on her shoulders. Based on its color, it must have come from the rope that had been used to hang her. Miss Sakura, could you tell me what Koizumi was wearing before she went to wash? Her uniform? Ron nodded. Ron found herself a chair to stand on and craned her head to inspect Koizumi's neck. The rope has been tied tightly to her neck. There's almost no gap between the two. In a situation like this, both the ventral and dorsal sides of the neck ought to be prominently marked. Ron poked a finger between the rope and Koizumi's neck to make a gap, and was just barely able to see the skin underneath on the back of Koizumi's neck. As expected, the backside of the neck is also bruised. If the culprit used this rope to strangle Koizumi-sensei before stringing her up, then they may have tied the noose this tight to cover the unnatural marks. But the messiness of the scrape marks makes it hard to judge. All I can say for sure is that the marks were definitely made by this rope, since their patterns easily match each other perfectly. Ron climbed to the second floor and knelt on the floor, inspecting the rope tied to the railings closely. There are clear signs that the end was cut. This rope must have been longer previously. If Koizumi-sensei killed herself, then she should have taken the rope to the second floor, tossed the noose end down to the lower floor, and then pulled the rope until the noose was at an appropriate height before tying the rope to the guardrail here. The excess length could be cut off after the knot was tied. Ron stood up and leaned over the guardrail, looking down at the lower floor. Aya gave Ron a cheerful wave. The other students were gathered in the discussion and analysis around Koizumi's corpse. It was a homicide. The process would mostly have been the same. Or maybe the killer carried Koizumi-sensei's corpse to the second floor before putting the noose around her neck and throwing her over the railing. Ron gave the rope a hard rub, causing a fair amount of detritus to flake off. There were also plenty of fibers left over around the railings. The rope seems quite old. A single touch caused a bunch of it to come off. Ron looked at the fibrous debris in her hand, deep in thought. Ron approached the corpse and examined Koizumi's dangling hands. Though her nails were a bit long, they were manicured immaculately, and the tips of her fingers were clean. Doesn't seem like there's anything worthy. Fingers shouldn't be... Wait, why are the fingers so clean? There's no sign of abrasion at all. Not even any abnormalities with the fingernails. Ron lifted Koizumi's hand, closely inspected it. What is it? When An saw what Ron was doing, she approached as well. Looks like the probability of this being a homicide has just increased. An looked at Koizumi's hands and nodded, a light smile rising on her face. I think that's it. That's about all I could get off the corpse. Ron shared the clues she found with the others. Then let's get Hanada down from there and take her to the morgue. We can also take her clothes off and check her body for any other signs of injuries there. I'll carry her then. Her body's in pretty complete shape, so I don't think we need a body bag for this one. Sai gestured Asakura over to help her, and as Sai held Koizumi from below, Asakura got up on her tiptoes and used a fruit knife provided by Tama to cut Koizumi loose. As the rope broke, Koizumi's corpse landed into Sai's lap, who picked her up in a bridal carry. Besides Koizumi's lips looking rather cyanotic, she looked just like she'd fallen asleep, with her head gently resting on Sai's chest. Miss Sakura? I'd like to stay at the scene of the crime and see if there are any other clues. Ron nodded. I should figure out where I want to investigate as well. Let's solve this case ASAP. I want to speak with Koizumi-sensei some more. Ooh. Okay. Let's go to these weirdos, where the morgue and the music room are. After Ron entered the morgue, she saw that Asakura was also there. You're here as well, Asakura. Urinos disappeared, though. Urinos-san went back to the dorms. She said she wanted to look over the scene of the crime a bit more. Oh, I see. So how's the condition of the corpse? Ron approached the bed where Koizumi had already been changed into a hospital gown. Besides the neck, there's no signs of any other external injuries. It probably was just the strangling that did the job. Can't believe that someone other than myself chose to commit suicide. That's a terrible joke. Asakura, on the other hand, grinned at her own wisecrack. Still, Asakura, it seems like you've been much more motivated than usual. Rare to see you proactively investigating an incident like this. It's all because of you, you know. Asakura leaned down and brought her face quite close to Ron's. Thanks to you, Indo's not even giving me the time of day. So all I can really do is come out and try to have some fun on my own. Well, you do seem to be enjoying yourself. I'll tell her about how Indo has spent all this alone time writing letters to her just yet. Indo has things she wants to do too, after all. Asakura nodded and set aside her smile, letting her gaze wander away from Ron. Yeah, she has things she wants to do now. It's wonderful. Ron heard a sense of warmth that she'd never heard from Asakura before. That warmth directed at Tama Indo touched Ron's heart as well. Only Asakura could have met someone like Indo in reality. Yeah, the problems between me and Indo are basically settled now. How about you? Me? What about me? Oh, you mean the situation with me and An? Well, yeah, who else? You've got her super worked up and anxious these days, and it looks like you're the only one who can't tell. Hi, Ash, welcome in. Just in time for almost the end of the stream. Unfortunately. But welcome all the same. No matter how long you're here, we welcome everyone, and I value everyone's presence. Excuse me? I know far better than any of you how best to talk to Miss Sakura, and Miss Sakura would never get anxious in the first place. Yeah, I get it. The Miss Sakura you know is some kind of incredible, hyper-competent goddess. But the her here is far more emotionally sensitive than you seem to understand. Seriously, you shouldn't push her as much as you're doing. Try and find a different way to get along with her. The unfortunate, accidental timing. Ran understood how Asakura was able to come to this conclusion. She tried changing the way she interacted with An before, too. But she really didn't want other people to make suggestions about how her and An's relationship ought to change, even if the suggestion was probably for the better. This is a matter between me and Miss Sakura. Don't interfere. After she's... Oh, jeez! I think after she said those, she turned and left, I'm guessing. Let me see the log. There. After she said those words, Ran turned and left immediately. It was clear by her demeanor, though, that Ran lacked confidence in her own words, and Asakura couldn't help but smile as she watched Ran leave. Well, look who's got all this free time on her hands. Aren't you going to go look for the killer? Aya was sitting on the bench of the piano. When she saw Ran enter, she set her guitar down and invited Ran to sit by patting the empty spot next to her on the bench. Why bother? Clearly it's suicide, and I don't really feel like investigating. Ran went ahead and plopped herself down on the piano bench. The bench wasn't very long, leaving the two of them pressed close together. I guess. So you're still not going to tell me about why you and Takei had that argument? Nope, I'm not. Looks like forcing it isn't going to work. Let's talk about something else first. Ran took a glance at the crest sewn onto Aya's jacket and poked at it a few times. I never got a chance to ask this before. Did you sew this on yourself? Yep. Aya proudly pulled at her jacket, displaying the crest. I bet you didn't expect that kind of craftsmanship out of me, huh? I embroidered the crest and showed it onto the jacket myself. Yeah, I'm surprised. I thought for sure that was Takei's handiwork. No way. Miha couldn't pull something like this off. Aya raised her head and tapped her neck choker. The starry decoration glittered. She bought this for me as a present. Don't you think she's such a perv? How the hell am I supposed to answer that question? So how come she bought you something like that? Because I started a band with some friends. I had a bunch of my buds who also liked Led Zeppelin together, and we started a rock and roll band. This embroidered crest is the symbol of our band. I made one for each of us. Oh, that sounds impressive. I'm not super familiar with British rock and roll from the 70s, but sure seem pretty familiar with it if you can name that much. Aya gave Ron's shoulder a bump. Led Zeppelin, huh? Oh. Yes! I thought we weren't gonna get one! Led Zeppelin, huh? Reminds me of that incident I ran into while I was using the ticket of the Observer. That one gave me a real scare. I encountered a concert performance once. Back when I was using the ticket, too. Shame that I can't use it anymore. Alright, what in the shit-ass is this? We got a new one! The Observer's Ticket! The Observer's Ticket is an 8cm by 6cm round-trip bus ticket made of copper-lined paper. The left side of the ticket stub has a departure arrow drawn on it. After an intelligent being rips the ticket at the dotted line, that being will be transported within 0.1 seconds to the scene of a major event caused by that intelligent being. The exact definition of major event has been lost due to memory loss. The transportation is completely random and unaffected by the passage of time. After arriving at the destination, the torn ticket stub will reappear, with the departure arrow having been replaced by a return arrow. Ripping the ticket stub again will return the traveler to their point of origin within 0.1 seconds. Whenever an intelligent being goes 20 years without experiencing a major event, that being will immediately embark on a journey to find and obtain an observer's ticket. Such journeys always end with a successful discovery of a ticket within 36 days at most. Whether or not the being in question uses the ticket after acquiring it, however, is a decision left to them alone. Ron Ibuki once utilized the ticket to travel to a distant planet outside of the Milky Way. However, after using 12 separate tickets, Ron Ibuki found that further tickets would no longer take effect upon her. Yeah, why not? That's one of the least weird ones. But yeah, just normal shit, you know? Just normal shit. I was really worried I wasn't gonna have something to do for the thumbnail this time. Yeah, no, the ticket's cool as hell. Pretty much everything that Ron describes, pretty much every single thing that Ron describes as if it's normal and is the most completely insane shit does sound incredibly fucking cool. Like, I am always a huge fan of everything that she drops out of fucking nowhere. I think... Well, no, let's get to the end of this scene, and then I'm gonna wrap. The Miha didn't like the band much. Is that why the two of you fought? Is Ranchan trying to trick me into talking? Unfortunately, it was completely unrelated. I gently stroked the choker on her neck, showing a rare expression of vulnerability. Even though she didn't like the band much, Miha still supported me anyway. She attended every concert we held. Ouch. This thing on my neck's because she thought that all rock and rollers wore weird jewelry anyway, and she didn't want me to lose to anyone else on that front. Ron nodded. I can understand Takei's way of thinking. These two have such a strong relationship. Really don't know why they've gotten into such a bad fight. Honestly, I'm personally not into wearing flashy things like this, but she bought it for me, so I definitely gotta wear it proudly. And it's fun to parade around, too, huh? You like Takei that much, huh? You like Takei that much, huh? Of course. My favorite person in the world. The more Miho and Aya flaunted their mutual affection, the more confused Ron was about why they would even fight in the first place. Honestly, I'm starting to think that the topic of their fight was over something completely trivial at this point. Alright, I'm gonna keep investigating now. Try not to slack off too hard, alright? Excuse you, I am not slacking off. I am hard at work, composing new songs. Ron could only shrug at that and left the music room. Ba-dum-bump. Okay. Save the game. We are on chapter 2. And at long last, we are... Oh, hi. Kuzumi jump scare. Yeah. As always, no, why is that there? Why is that there? Why is that there? I don't want that there. Well, yeah, I'm fucking haunted by the ghost of Koizumi. Anyway, yeah, it's such a funky little weird story, but I'm having a really good time with it. I'm so curious how this is all gonna come to a head eventually. And yeah, I'm haunted as fuck, I guess. So, yeah. Either way, I thank you all for coming. I really do appreciate it. Everybody who shows up, I always very much value your presence here. Thank you all so much for supporting me and just showing up for my streams. I really do appreciate it. We're going to be back tomorrow, usual time, 3 to 5, where we will keep going with this stuff. So, thank you all for joining me, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye. Hey, if you stuck around to the end of the video, I just wanted to say thank you, and I hope that you enjoyed. If you want to help support me in making more of this, you can follow me on Twitch, where I stream these live. Like, comment, and subscribe. I suspect you all know how this works by now, but it really does help a lot. Thanks.